Hello and welcome to the 30k channel dedicated to getting set in the Horus Heresy. I'm your host, as always, David Brains, and I am joined by Paul. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
Great to have Paul back on with his lovely Raven Guard. And he's brought a friend, he's brought Matthew. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, Matthew has brought some fantastic Death Guard. It looks great.
Thanks.
Love it, absolutely love it. Both armies are spectacular, so there'll be loads of photos today, so make sure you go to the Facebook page and have a look at those photos. Gents, this is quite an exciting matchup, this, isn't it?
Yeah. Bit worrying.
I think it's a bit worrying on both parts. We've got a ton of firepower from the Death Guard.
Lots of guns.
The Reaping Rite of War. Got 3 pretty much large gun lines and then a ton of armour, haven't you?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then, Paul, we've got the 3 Fraptor list.
Yeah. That was bound to happen.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a heavily themed army, eh?
Yeah, it is. Its drawbacks is armour, so this list is going to be very tough for me.
Yeah.
Just hopefully I get in combat and do the business, but we'll see.
And we've got Corax out the front as well, haven't we?
Yeah. Thought I'd give him something to worry about, so that doesn't focus just on the Raptors, but we'll see.
We shall see. But firstly, before we delve too deep into these armies, we must thank Paul and Matthew coming. They've come all the way from Surrey this morning, so an early start, I'd imagine, just trundling on the motorway on the way up.
Yeah, 6:30 start for me. So.
Oof. I was here building a board at very early in the morning, so yeah, a lot of effort's gone into organising today's game, so thank you, gents, for both your efforts. I really appreciate that. I must admit, when I read both of these lists, I was a bit like, crumbs. I don't know if they were a bit of a mismatch or not, but I've built the board in such a way that it promotes a lot of movement for you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and particularly those tanks have got to work hard to get some line of sight, I think, haven't they? And the mission we're playing is War of Lies.
Yep, War of Lies.
Yep. Yeah, War of Lies, and we've got the spearhead. I think it's a spearhead. Clash of the Line. No, it's not Clash of the Line.
Clash of the Line.
Yeah, Clash of
Yeah,
the
it
Line.
is Clash of the Line. Well, the pointy one, where it's essentially hammer and anvil with pointies, which I think would be quite interesting because I think it'll force you both into a bit of a
Wedge.
yeah.
Lots of blast templates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't decide which of the deployment's better for you, whether you have like the city to walk through, to drive through, or you come the other side of the building. I'm not quite sure.
I can't decide either.
No. I don't think it matters for you.
No, not really.
I think the board, not complements, but I think it's a bit more advantageous for you.
Yeah, Raven Guard. What can I say? Infiltrate, so...
And
it's all good.
those fire raptors will just fly over the top of those buildings and get some line of sight.
Yeah.
It's just whether you're going to meet the front armour on with those strength 7 weapons or not, I'm not sure.
We'll see. We'll see.
I think Paul's got to work hard to get to the side or the rear armour, I think, of your vehicles,
Absolutely.
I think.
Absolutely.
Which would be quite interesting. But I think you've got a lot of cover at either end of the board to get those troops into position. And in the last game that we had World Eaters and Raven Guard, the Dark Furies performed amazing. They were so good.
Given the opportunity, they do perform.
Yeah.
They're so good. But, they need to not be shot out for the board first.
And I think that's the problem with Dark Furies. They tend to get targeted because they are really, really effective in combat. They've got a ton of attacks with the Shred, and you're rending as well, aren't you?
Well, yeah.
And they tend to disappear, but in the last game they made combat and they did an absolutely amazing job of... I won't give away, no spoilers, but they did a really good job. So it'll be interesting to see how they get into contact. And you've got a 10-man unit as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Love a bit of that. Matthew, what about Corax? You've not got Mortarion to face off, but
No,
you've
I
got a lot of
don't.
tanks.
I've got a lot of tanks and a lot of firepower, but unfortunately I'm going to be snap firing it most of the game unless Paul manages to overextend him.
What is your plan for Corax?
Shoot him with high rate of fire and hope he fails, and then throw something heavy at him.
I think that's the way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But also as well, to mitigate the flyers, you've got an Arcus with the Sky Spear rockets in, and you've got a Mortis Contemptor as well.
Yep.
So for their, it's the to hit rolls, which is great, but it's the rending attacks you need to get on the old Mortis.
Rending and the Skyfire.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Arcuses, they tend to do the same thing as the Dark Furies. If there's flies in the list, they tend to get targeted first, and they very rarely get a shot off. But if they're firing up or down into the sky or under the ground, they've got an amazing rate of fire. You know, you can,
Especially if they sit still.
yeah, double the shots. Streak Fate AP3, is it?
AP2.
Oh god, even better. Although it's probably not so bad because they won't be wasted on vehicles. It'll be on troops, but you'll probably get a cover save. So
It's got its terminal tracking, so you've got to re-roll it.
Oh, re-rollable. Yeah. Very true. I think it's going to be quite interesting as well. And you've also brought, is it Rask you've brought? Durek Rask?
Durek Rask.
Yeah, so he's got a really funky rule, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got the target priority warlord trait. So any objectives that he's sitting on, I get to re-roll to hit all to hit rolls of 1 within 12 inches of him.
Yeah.
So going to be deploying some objectives as landmines.
And he also confers Wrecker and Tank Hunter as well.
Yes.
Which is quite handy because we talked about this when you arrived about having the las cannons with Tank Hunter, which makes them quite effective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting as well. And the Grave Wardens are always a great solid unit. You know, they've got their flamer attack as you charge in, which would be quite key for you because normally Cataphractii can't overwatch when they charge in, particularly with your grenade launcher as well.
Yeah.
But you've got that special
The Death Cloud.
Death Cloud. So flamer attack as they go in D3. So that'd be quite interesting. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I can't quite decide how it's going to go, but as always with War Allies, you know, you just need one unit on an objective at the end of the game, and that'll score you the point. And then it's obviously how you roll well at the end of the game. So we shall see. We saw a War of Allies in the last 2 games we had for the Zonal Ties with Derek and friends he brought down from Newcastle, and Darlington. Don't forget Darlington. And sorry, a bit in joke. You probably, if you haven't watched it, you haven't seen it yet. But the War of Lies really worked against one of the factions in the last game. So War of Lies is always an interesting one. It's a massive favourite of mine, but a lot of people don't like War of Lies because you feel like you've been robbed at the end of the game. But I think it's a real good one. So
Makes it interesting.
it does, eh?
Mm.
Yeah, you work hard all game and then you get robbed or you're successful at the
Right
end
at
of
the
it. Yes,
Yeah.
like God damn it. So we shall see. Just one more thing to cover. We are using the new FAQ rules for quad mortars.
Yeah, the beta rules. So no longer throwing out a barrage of 4 small blasts. It's just 1 large blast that's twin link now.
Yeah. Streamline those rules way better, I think.
Yeah, much faster.
There was always, when you rolled the scatter dice, there was always an interpretation about where those flipped, and then you have to do it 4 times, and if you had a unit of 3, you were just there
12
forever.
shots.
Yeah, so great work from Forge World there, just streamlining those rules. So really pleased to have those. And also as well, Implacable Advance on the Mordathan,
Yeah,
so they can score now.
finally.
Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. There's a lot of terrain on that board, so it's going to be really interesting to see how both armies deal with all that terrain. I think the Raven Guard have got a bit of an edge, but I think the Death Guard don't care, and they're just going to trundle straight through it with the vehicle, so we'll find out. Gents, I'm really looking forward to this. Let's have a look at your lists, and then we'll see at the beginning of turn 1.
3,000 points of Raven Guard, led by Corvus Corax, and running the Right of War Liberation Force. HQ choice for the Raven Guard, Chaplain, armed with twin Raven Claws, Jump Pack, Artificer Armour, Refractor Field, and Melter Bombs. And the Damocles Command Rhino, armed with a Dozer Blade and a Heavy Bolter. Elite's choice for the Raven Guard, a unit of 10 Mordathan, armed with Sniper Rifles. Troops choice for the Raven Guard, 2 units of Tactical Marines, armed with bolters and additional combat weapons. The Sergeant is armed with a power weapon, power sword in this case, Artificer Armour, and Melter Bombs. The Rhinos have Dozer Blades. Third Troops choice for the Raven Guard, a unit of 5 Tactical Support Marines with plasma guns. Fast attack for the Raven Guard, a unit of 8 Seekers. The Sergeant is armed with a power weapon, a power sword, and a combi melter. There are 2 combi melters in the unit. Also a Rhino armed with an additional Dozer Blade, and a unit of 10 Dark Furies. The Sergeant is armed with a Melter Bomb, and attached to that unit is a Apothecary armed with a Jump Pack and Power Sword. Heavy support choice for the Raven Guard, 3 identical Fire Raptors armed with the autocannons on the balls and 4 Hellstrike missiles. Lord of War choice and Warlord for the Raven Guard, Corvus Corax.
3,000 points of Death Guard, led by Durek Rask, who has the target priority warlord trait, and they are running the Reaping. The Death Guard force, led by Durek Rask, who is in Artificer Armour and is wielding a Thunderhammer, a Volkite Serpenter, and a Melter Bomb. Joining him is an Armistos from Book 8. He's the new console choice. He is armed with Artificer Armour and a Mastercrafted Volkite Culverin and an Augury Scanner. He'll be joining a squad of heavy support marines with Volkite Culverins, and he grants them Mastercrafted weapons. Elites for the Death Guard, we have a Mortis Contemptor Dreadnought armed with 2 Kaheris Salt Cannons, and we have 2 individual Rapier batteries with Shatter Shells. In the Death Guard Rite of War, the Reaping, the heavy support squads can be taken as non-compulsory troops. We have a 5-man unit of las cannons, and the sergeant has an augury scanner. We have a 7-man unit of heavy support marines armed with missile launchers, and the sergeant has an augury scanner. We have a 10-man unit of heavy support marines armed with Volkite Culverins. For the compulsory troops, there are 2 10-man tactical squads with bolters and extra close combat weapons. They have a Vexilla, and the sergeant is armed with a power scythe, rad grenades, and a melter bomb, and they are inside a Rhino that has a multi-melter pintle mounted. First heavy support choice, a Sikaran Arcus, armed with a set of Sky Spear missiles, and it has armoured Ceramite. Next heavy support choice is a unit of 5 Grave Wardens, armed with 2 Chain Fists and rad grenades. And their dedicated transport is a Land Raider with Assault Ramp, Twin-Linked Heavy Bolter, and 2 Twin-Linked Las Cannons, and Armoured Ceramite. The final heavy support choice, there are 3 Vindicators, and they all have Power of the Machine Spirit.
Paul, Matthew were deployed and ready to go. There's a massive wall of Death Guard armour facing off of not a lot of infantry.
Yeah, that's correct. Most of my stuff is in reserve.
Yes, you've also infiltrated quite a bit as well. You're quite advanced at the board, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying to get most of the objectives, or at least close to them, for the end turn, but we'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. Now, at the moment, the Death Guard are going first, but Paul, you fancy a siege, don't you?
I do.
Excellent. All right, I think you might need it. I can't decide if you need it or not, but let's have a friendly handshake, gents.
Good luck.
Good luck to you both. Let's have a siege.
The dice decide. Oh, it's going to be Raven Guard turn 1.
Turn 1 movement for the Raven Guard. The 2 Rhinos with tactical squads have moved up 6 inches and have deployed smoke. And the Plasma Gunners have embarked into the Command Rhino. Turn 1 Raven Guard shooting. The Command Rhino used its orbital bombardment to target the Death Guard in the building. It killed 3 missile launchers, including the Sergeant, and 2 Volkite Culverins. Unfortunately, the Dreadnought remains unharmed. The Mordathan, with their 10 sniper rifles, aimed carefully, picking their targets at the missile launcher squad, including the Warlord. They took aim, fired 10 shots, 10 hits, 4 of them marking Rask out. There'd be 3 AP2 wounds and 1 normal armor save. Rask diligently pulled his arm up to take cover, but unfortunately his helmet was missing and he took 3 in the face. The remainder of the squad took 1 additional casualty. At end of turn 1 for the Raven Guard, the fatal strike from the Mordathan really helped me out this turn, taking out the Warlord and the missile launchers, making them run. Everything else hasn't done a huge amount, but the Command Rhino did his bit. But yeah, I'm very happy with turn 1 for the Raven Guard.
Death Guard turn 1 movement. The Squadron of Vindicators have gone at cruising speed to get into range. The Land Raider has moved up alongside them for cover. The fleeing missile launchers have managed to regroup and get back inside the ruins. And the pair of rhinos have gone also at cruising speed. Death Guard turn 1 shooting phase. The Squadron of Vindicators have gone flat out to try and get their guns into range. The Land Raider has turned one of its las cannons to fire through the ruin at a rhino on the other side, which will heavily obscure the rhino and give it a stronger cover save. With its popped smoke, it has a 2+ cover save. The single las cannon shot found its mark, hit, penetrated, and Paul rolled a 1 for the cover save, and the rhino is shaken and taken a hull point. The las cannons took aim and fired at the Raven Guard Command Rhino, trying to hide behind the squat Mechanicum building. The las cannons fired and got 4 hits on the rhino. However, 2 of them failed to penetrate the armour, and the other 2 were blocked by the cover, not scoring any damage on the vehicle. The rhinos that had gone at cruising speed turned their pintle-mounted multi-melters at the rhino in the open. They both fired, however, neither of them found their mark. The Volkites, we forgot to move them in the movement phase, so they've moved up to the windows so they can draw line of sight. They've lowered their guns and fired their Volkite culverins into the Mordathan squad hiding in the ruins. There were 36 shots, however they had to snap fire as moving and firing heavy weapons. I got 8 hits total and caused 8 wounds. 3 of the Mordathan failed their armour saves, and then the deflagration killed another one. The Rapier quad mortar that's sitting in the ruins, with Rask dead, can no longer draw line of sight with his Nucia Vox. They've fired blind into the Mordathan squad. They got a direct hit, so 4 hits total. However, they only got 1 wound, and their armour deflected the blow. The Arcus, having sat still in the movement phase, was able to fire its Arcus warheads twice and shot at the rhino in the open. It managed to score 5 hits and got 2 glancing hits and 3 penetrating hits. And with its terminal tracking, the Raven Guard had to re-roll their successful cover saves and managed to score a explosion result, which killed the rhino and also killed 2 of the marines inside it. Rapier fired its shatter shells into the Mordathan. They scored 4 shots with 3 hits and 3 wounds. However, the Mordathan managed to pass 2 of their armour saves, only killing 1 of them. Death Guard Contemptor lined up its Kahery's assault cannons with the rhino that had been stunned. It fired up, scored 12 hits, and got 2 glancing hits and 2 penetrating hits. However, with the ruin in the way and the smoke from its smoke launchers, no damage was done to the rhino. End of Death Guard turn 1. Little lackluster with the firepower. Managed to thin down the Mordathan that caused a bit of a problem, but hopefully we'll be able to thin them out in the next turn.
Turn 2, Raven Guard. The reserves were pretty good rolls overall. The only model staying off is Corax. He's biding his time. The 3 Fire Raptors came in, strafing run along towards the Death Guard lines. The Seekers have barreled in on an outflank move behind the Vindicators. The Dark Furies on the far side of the board have landed within 24 inches of the Command Rhino, so didn't scatter. The command rhino has since moved. The tactical squads behind the bunker have gone to seize the objective and hold it as best they can. Mordathan have remained still, as has the rhino, due to its stunned result. Raven Guard turned to shooting. The Dark Furies ran a respectable 3 inches to open themselves up and get out of dodge. The Mordathan returned fire at the Volkite Culverins, picking out the character. However, he passed it off onto a lowly marine who bit the bullet and died. The Seeker unit inside the Rhino put 2 combi melters into the Vindicators, 2 hits, 2 penetrations, 2 weapons destroyed, so bye-bye 1 Vindicator. The combi bolter from the Rhino took aim at the las cannons, 1 hit but failed to wound. The stunned Rhino snapshot against the Culverins, dealing 1 hit but failed to wound. The 2 tactical marines who could train fire on the missile launchers, the remaining of the squad, both failed to hit, and the command Rhino popped smoke. Fire Raptor number 1, opening with its Avenger bolt cannon, dealing 7 hits, 7 wounds to the Culverins unit, causing 3 casualties. The first twin Reaper autocannon opened fire also, but all the saves were tanked by the character in the unit. The second autocannon took aim at the las cannon team, 4 hits, 2 wounds, and 1 las cannon died. Second Fire Raptor, opening up with all its weapons. The Avenger bolt cannon and 1 Reaper autocannon went into the Culverins. Total damage was 1 wound to the Armistice. 1 autocannon went into the las cannons team, but they survived also. But 4 Hellstrike missiles went into the Contemptor. 4 hits and 3 penetrating hits, wounds. And unfortunately, the Contemptor made 2 of the saves and only stunned it. The last Fire Raptor opening up with all weapons, targeting multiple units. The Hellstrike missiles and 1 Reaper autocannon went into the Vindicators, destroying 1 but not blowing it up, and causing a hull point onto the last one that's undamaged. The other Reaper autocannon went into the las cannon team, 4 hits, 4 wounds, and 2 failed saves, leaving 2 left. And lastly, the Avenger bolt cannon opening up into the quad mortar, causing 2 wounds and causing 1 casualty. At the end of the Raven Guard shooting phase, morale checks were taken. The Culverins and the las cannon team both passed their leadership checks. However, the Rapier failed and as a result ran off the board. Overall, good round of shooting. The 3 Fire Raptors turning up in turn 2, absolutely fantastic. Just waiting for the next incoming fire from the Death Guard. Moving on to Death Guard turn 2.
Death Guard turn 2, movement phase. The Vindicators have gone at cruising speed to get away from the Seekers and draw a line of fire onto the tactical squad behind the bunker. The one that's had its guns blown off is now acting as an extra hull point and trying to deflect some fire. The Land Raider has shifted over and unloaded its contents of Grave Wardens, hoping to get at the Seekers in the Rhino. The Arcus has sped around the corner to draw fire with its Sky Spear missiles on the Fire Raptors. And on the other side of the board, the 2 Rhinos have driven forwards and deposited their cargo of tactical marines into rapid fire range. Death Guard turn to shooting phase. The remaining quad mortar opened fire with shatter shells into the Seeker's Rhino, managed to score 2 hits and caused 2 pens on it, which has immobilized it and shaken it. The 2 Rhinos opened fire with their multi-melters onto the remaining Raven Guard Rhino. They managed to score 1 hit between them, and they did a glancing hit. The tactical squad fired with their bolters with 20 shots into the Mordathan. They scored 16 hits, which caused 12 wounds, and 6 failed armour saves, killed the remaining Mordathan squad. The Vindicators fired a single demolisher shell at the tactical squad next to the bunker. The shell scattered wide and clipped the tactical squad. It scored 4 hits on the Raven Guard and 1 hit on the Death Guard. The Death Guard was wounded, however he passed his cover save, and the Raven Guard lost 4 models to the demolisher shell. The tactical squad opened fire with their bolters, getting 20 shots onto the remaining tactical squad. They scored 15 hits and 9 wounds, and they managed to kill off 2 more of the Raven Guard tactical marines. The Volkite Culverins opened fire into the Dark Furies. They scored 18 hits of a total of 20 shots. They scored 15 wounds. However, they only managed to kill 2 of the Dark Furies, thanks to some lucky Feel No Pains. The Arcus opened fire with its Skyspear warheads at the frontmost Fire Raptor. It scored 4 hits. However, it only managed to do 1 glancing hit and 1 penetrating hit. The Fire Raptor managed to jink the glance. However, it took the brunt of the penetrating hit and got an immobilized result. It managed to pass its crash and burn check, so it is crew stunned, so it just must move forward in its next turn. The Mortis Contemptor in the building, as it was already stunned, it opened fire on one of the Fire Raptors, however it scored no hits. The Land Raider opened fire with its las cannons. It turned its left one to fire at the Rhino the Seeker's Wren, and managed to destroy it, making the Seekers spill out of the back hatch. And it used its Power of the Machine Spirit to fire its other las cannon at the Fire Raptor, however it didn't manage to hit. The las cannon team opened up and fired onto the Command Rhino, which was lovely sitting out in the open for me. They scored 2 hits and managed to get 1 penetrating hit, which was not saved by its smoke cloud, and I managed to roll Explode on the damage chart, which also managed to kill one of the plasma support marines inside. The Grave Wardens fired their grenade launchers and death clouds at the Seeker squad, scoring a total of 19 hits and 17 wounds. The Seekers managed to pass 14 of their arm saves, and it killed 3 of the squad. Death Guard combat phase. The Grave Wardens charged at the Seeker squad. There were no hits caused by Overwatch. Grave Wardens have managed to successfully charge into the Seekers. The Seekers went first at Initiative 4 with 11 attacks from the squad. They scored 6 hits, but only 2 wounds, and the Terminators managed to pass their armor save. The Grave Wardens swung back at Initiative 1 with 15 attacks. They scored 6 hits and 5 wounds, which wiped the squad of Seekers out. They then consolidated 3 inches to try and get a bit of cover from the Fire Raptors. Despite the pummeling from the Raven Guard from their turn, we've managed to claw back a bit of ground, and managed to cause a bit of damage to some of their squads, so hopefully we'll be able to weather their turn 3.
Raven Guard turn 3 movement. Korax arrived via deep strike. He scattered 7 inches, landing him near to the Fire Raptors, but avoided any damage from landing. The Plasma squad have moved towards the objective. The 3 Fire Raptors have pushed up, one of them having to go straight ahead 18 inches towards the board edge. The tactical squad from the Rhino disembarked next to the tactical squad from the Death Guard. The Dark Furies jumped up, needing a short charge to get into combat. Turn 3 Raven Guard shooting. The tactical squad that fell back last turn, that rallied at the beginning of this turn, have run their full 6 inches because of Korax back towards the objective, holding it within a breadth. The Plasma squads decided it was a good idea to shoot the Vindicators. 2 missed and overheated, including the sergeant, but fortunately they both survived. The last one that could see managed to get hit in, but failed to do any damage. The tactical squad jumped out of the Rhino, emptied their bolters into the Death Guard tactical squad. 20 shots, 16 hits, 8 wounds, and 2 deaths. The Rhino also used his combi bolter, got 1 hit, and failed to cause any damage. The first Fire Raptor emptied the Avenger bolt cannon into the Death Shroud Terminators, causing 7 hits, 5 wounds, and unfortunately 2 of them did not make their saves. The autocannon put some 4 shots into the missile launcher squad, but failed to do any damage. The second Fire Raptor, opening up with the 2 Reaper autocannons, the first one into the Contemptor Dreadnought, got 4 hits, one glancing hit, and the Contemptor made its invulnerable save. The other autocannon went into the Terminators and passed all saves. The 4 Hellstrike missiles went straight into the Arcus, 4 hits, and with Sunder managed to cause 1 penetrating hit and stunned or shook the vehicle, making it snap fire next turn. The third and final Fire Raptor opened up into 3 separate targets. The first Reaper autocannon went into the tactical squad's Rhino that's showing its rear, got 4 hits and 1 penetration, and unfortunately caused no damage. The cover save was made. The Avenger bolt cannon went into the Culverin squad, 7 hits, 6 wounds, and all saves were made onto the Armistice. The last Reaper autocannon went into the Las Cannon squad, causing 4 hits, 3 wounds, and 1 Las Cannon Marine bit the dust. The Furies threw a crack grenade at the tactical squad. Unfortunately, it failed to kill anyone, and Corax made a mighty 1-inch run. At the end of the shooting phase, the Grave Wardens took a leadership check for losing over 25% casualties. They failed the leadership check. They ran 8 inches, falling them back off the board. Raven Guard turn 3 assault phase. The Dark Furies, in their infinite wisdom, decided to assault both tactical squads. 36 shots of Overwatch from bolters, lost 2 to the number. 2 crack grenades were chucked by the sergeants, but failed to cause any damage. The chaplain, with his 4 attacks, went into the tactical squad. 4 hits, 4 wounds, 4 dead Death Guard. Initiative 5, with the Dark Furies, managed to kill 8 from 1 tactical squad, including the sergeant, and on the other one, leaving the sergeant left, a total of 15 dead Death Guard tactical marines. At the Initiative 4 step, the 2 Death Guard tactical marines made a bid for the Dark Furies, but were unable to get in with a 3-inch piling move. The Apothecary stood toe-to-toe to the sergeant, brandished his power sword, and stabbed him through the neck. It's unfortunately a Death Guard tactical squad loss. They failed their leadership check and unfortunately got mown down by the Dark Furies. A great turn, the Dark Furies consolidated their 4 inches towards the Death Guard. An overall fantastic turn, leaving not much of the Death Guard left to face off with the remaining Raven Guard forces.
Death Guard turn 3 movement phase. The Rhinos have stood still to unleash fire into the Dark Furies. The Vindicators have moved round to draw a line of fire onto the tactical squad. The Mortis Contemptor has sat still to gain Skyfire. The heavy weapons squads are all standing still, so they don't have to snap fire. The Land Raider has moved round beneath the Fire Raptor to try and start picking off some of the Plasma Support Squad. And the Arcus has also sat still to get double shots. Death Guard turn 3 shooting phase. The Rhinos fired their multi-melters and combi bolters into the Dark Furies. The multi-melters got 2 hits and 1 wound, and they managed to evaporate 1 Dark Fury. The combi bolters both scored 1 hit each, and 1 wound. However, the Dark Furies passed their armor saves. The Death Guard Vindicator fired its Demolisher shell into the tactical squad clumped up by the containers. The shot went completely wide, however, and missed the squad. The Vindicator used its Power of the Machine Spirit to fire its Combi Bolter into the 2 Marines near the bunker. However, it missed completely. The Death Guard Land Raider fired one of its las cannons and its heavy bolter into the Raven Guard Plasma Support Squad and managed to kill one with a heavy bolter shot. The other las cannon, using Power of the Machine Spirit, fired up into the Fire Raptor, which jinked. However, the las cannon missed its target. The Quad Mortar opened fire with shatter shells into the Dark Fury squad. It scored 4 hits and 3 wounds, and managed to instantly kill 2 of the Dark Furies. The Arcus opened fire with its Arcus warheads, as it has to snap fire anyway. It would be hitting on 6s regardless. So it fired at the Fire Raptor directly in front of it with 8 shots. Missed all of them. The Mortis Contemptor opened fire with its 2 Kahery's assault cannons into the Fire Raptor coming in for a strafing run. It managed to get 9 hits out of a total of 12. It scored 1 penetrating hit, which the Fire Raptor managed to save with its jink. The Missile Launcher Squad, deep within the ruins, managed to fire off 3 crack missiles into the Dark Furies. They got 2 hits and 2 wounds. The Sergeant failed his Artificer armor, and the other Marine failed to dodge out of the way, and they were both blown to pieces. The remaining las cannon took a shot at the last Fire Raptor that hadn't jinked yet, trying to force it to either reduce efficiency next turn or get a lucky hit. Unfortunately, it missed. The Volkite squad, wanting to seek vengeance for the slaughter of their brother, turned their guns on the Dark Fury squad. A total of 20 shots with 16 hits. They caused 13 wounds and removed the rest of the Dark Furies, leaving just the Chaplain and the Apothecary. So, end of Death Guard turn 3 shooting. Unfortunately, we lost the Grave Wardens because I've lost my combat punch now, but the Volkites managed to pick up the pace and finish off the remainder of the Dark Furies. But Corax has made the field, and the 3 Fire Raptors are still firing at full power.
Turn 4, Raven Guard movement. One of the Fire Raptors has flown off to come back at a later turn. The other 2 have gone into Vital mode and are faced off against their arch nemesis, the Volkite squad and the Arcus. Corax has made a move towards the Vindicators in an attempt to finally shut them down. The Plasma squad moving up with him to give him some fire support. The Tactical squad have moved down from the container following the Rhino, which has moved towards the Death Guard Rhinos. And the 2-man Tactical squad have moved round the bunker with a firm fix on that Rhino there. The Chaplain and Apothecary have jumped towards the Volkites just in case they survive the Fire Raptor. Raven Guard turn 4 shooting phase. The first Fire Raptor opened up with all its guns against the Arcus. Unfortunately, the Avenger bolt cannon finished it off before the Reaper autocannons had a chance. The second of the Fire Raptors opened up with the Avenger bolt cannon into the Volkite team, killing off 2 of its members with 6 hits and 6 wounds. The 2 Reaper autocannons, picking the Contemptor Mortis and the las cannon man separately, got 2 hits on each but failed to do any damage. The Rhino, last remaining one from the Tactical squad, fired its Combi Bolter into the Volkites, failed to do any damage. The 2 Tactical squads threw crack grenades at the Death Guard Rhino, causing 1 hit, 1 pen, and blew off the multi-melter. The Plasma Support Squad opened fire at the Vindicator. Only 2 Marines could see. Both fired rapid fire. Fortunately, one of them rolled double 1s and failed his armor save. They did, however, pass their leadership check. The Chaplain from what was left of the Dark Fury squad hucked a crack grenade into the Volkite Culverin squad, but caused no damage. Turn 4 Raven Guard assault phase. Corax made an easy charge into the Vindicators. The 2 tactical squads mobbed up against the Death Guard Rhino. Unfortunately, the Chaplain and Apothecary failed their 6-inch charge and had to stay at the bottom, but managed to avoid Overwatch. Following the charges, we had 12 tactical Marines throwing crack grenades at the Rhino, easily finishing it off, not exploding it. Corax went into the 2 Vindicators, managed to get, with his 8 attacks, using the panoply of the Ravenlord, got 5 hits, 3 pens and 2 glances, blowing up one of the Vindicators, but only destroying the last with the glancing hits. At the end of the Raven Guard turn, I think really good turn. Managed to get rid of that Arcus, which will help me in the long run. Started getting rid of the vehicles as well. Just the Land Raider and the Contemptor left to worry about, really. Good turn.
Death Guard turn 4 movement. The Rhino has moved round to try and take a lucky shot at the Chaplain. The Mortar team is drawing up eyes on the now hovering Fire Raptors. The heavy weapons squads in the ruin are still remaining stationary. The Land Raider has pivoted 180 degrees so it can get its las cannons into the Fire Raptors. And the Mortis Contemptor has marched towards the doorway to face down against the Raven Lord, as he is now the closest model to him. If the Fire Raptor is killed, he will be able to fire at him at full ballistic skill. Death Guard turn 4 shooting. The Land Raider fired each of its las cannons at the 2 individual Fire Raptors. It scored a hit on each of them. However, it only managed to do a single hull point to the furthest Fire Raptor. The Quad Mortar fired its shatter shells at the Fire Raptor next to the ruins. However, it got 1 hit and failed to glance it. The lone las cannon took a shot at the Fire Raptor. It managed to get a hit and did a penetrating hit and destroyed one of its autocannon batteries. The missile launchers fired up at the flyer, however they failed to hit. The remaining Volkite Culverins fired down at the larger tactical squad. They managed to get 7 hits and did 5 wounds, however it only killed 1 Marine. The Rhino fired its multi-melter and combi bolter into the Chaplain. However, it missed with the multi-melter and failed to cause any wounds with the combi bolter. The Mortis Contemptor fired out of the door towards the Raven Lord. However, as the Fire Raptor failed to explode, the Raven Lord was being snap fired at. I got 2 hits out of a possible 12 and caused a single wound. The Death Guard's firepower has been significantly blunted. Failing to kill the Fire Raptor really hurt my chances of pulling it back. But we'll see if I can weather the Raven Lord coming in to fight my heavy support squads.
Turn 5 Raven Guard movement. The larger tactical squad moved round with the Death Guard Rhino in sights. The Chaplain and the Apothecary jumped into the building, facing off against the missile squad. The smaller of the 2 tactical squads has gone round to look at the objective. The Plasma support squad have remained stationary. The Fire Raptor that went off last turn has come back. The other 2 have flown off. Corax has jumped up towards the Land Raider with it firmly in its sights. Turn 5 Raven Guard shooting. The Chaplain threw a crack grenade into the missile launcher squad, causing no damage. And the larger squad of tacticals threw a crack grenade into the Rhino, again failing to penetrate the armour. The Rhino used its combi bolter to shoot the Volkite Culverin squad, however failed to cause any injury. The Fire Raptor spooling up its guns. One of the Reaper autocannons went into the remaining las cannon, Marine, taking him out. The second Reaper autocannon that went into the Culverins failed to do any damage, but the Avenger Bolt Cannon finally managed to wipe the squad out. Turn 5 Raven Guard Assault Phase. The Tactical Marines have charged into the Rhino, but holding back onto the objective. Corax did a short run into the Land Raider, and the Chaplain and the Apothecary had a very lucky escape, taking 2 crack missiles to the face, but unfortunately for Death Guard, those missiles were duds and caused no injury. So Corax, the Raven Lord, went into the rear of the Land Raider with his 7 attacks, managed to get 6 hits, 3 penetrating hits and 2 glances, and exploding the Land Raider in the turn he charged. Pretty phenomenal. The tactical squad got into contact with the Rhino, threw 9 crack grenades, managed to blow off the multi-melter, but did no further damage. The Chaplain and the Apothecary managed to mince through the missile launcher Marines and consolidated through the building to get some cover from the Dreadnought. Overall, fantastic turn, leaving just the quad mortars and the Contemptor left. We're in good position.
Death Guard turn 5 movement. The Rhino pulled out of combat with the Tactical Marines and drove around the corner to try and box in the Chaplain. And the Contemptor smashed his way out of the ruins to avenge the deaths of his brothers and take on the Raven Lord. Death Guard turn 5 shooting. The Contemptor spooled up its salt cannons and began firing at the Raven Lord. It got 12 hits and only managed to get 5 wounds, with 2 of them being rending. The Raven Lord managed to save all of them. The Rhino fired its combi bolter at the Apothecary. It scored 1 wound, however the Apothecary's armour managed to deflect the blow. The quad mortar fired a frag shell at the large blob of Tactical Marines around the corner. However, the blast was caught by the wind and scattered off onto the Rhino. Did not do a hull point to it. At the end of Death Guard turn 5, there isn't really much the Death Guard can do from now on. It would just be the Raven Guard clearing up the remaining few models that we have left. So we're going to call it here for the end for the game. It's getting quite late in the day, so we're just going to total up the victory points and see how much of a defeat it is.
Raven Guard, Death Guard, gents, we called it on turn 5. I can't help but laugh. It's not funny. It's a very serious matter. We called it because it's getting quite late in the day. We've been quite a while at this game, and also there wasn't much to do on turn 6 really, because the Raven Guard probably would have wiped out the Death Guard.
I think so. I think
3
recently.
models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we called it a turn early just to make it a little bit more interesting. Gents, I think it's fair to say who's won, but we do have some various roles because we are playing War of Lies. So let's just familiarise ourselves with the score at the moment. Death Guard did a valiant job. The potential for the Fireplow on the Death Guard was humongous, but it just couldn't quite bring it to bear. But you've scored 4 victory points for the death toll condition of the game. Yep. So 4 points to Death Guard. Raven Guard did quite well.
Yeah. I feel a little bit bad, to be fair.
So for the Death Toll, you scored 13 total.
I did, yeah.
You got Slay the Warlord, which garnered you 1.
Yep.
But you've got a special rule.
Yeah. Part of my Right of War Liberation Force, I get D3 additional victory points if I slay the Warlord by the end of the game.
Which you rolled a 1.
Which I did, yeah, rolled a 1.
So plus 3 takes you to 16. And now you've got 2 rolls on War of Lies.
I do indeed.
Doesn't matter about the negatives, but we'll see.
I got a minus D3 and
a plus 3.
So the D3 would be 3. So net gain, nothing.
So final scores, I'm so sorry, 16 versus 4. A valiant effort, gents.
Acceptable losses.
Acceptable losses. Let's start with the Death Guard. You know, you had some potential firepower, didn't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, the deployment kind of robbed me of an ability to get a clear line of fire onto the Raven Guard turn 1.
Yeah.
And then on turn 2, all 3 Fire Raptors turned up at once. Didn't have line of sight with the Arcus, so couldn't try and take them out. and then just started losing things, being unable to claw back any kills, and then eventually it was just a struggle to stay alive whilst the Ravenlord turned up and just started mowing through the rest of the vehicles.
I think it was so tough, and we're going to talk about Mordathan in a second. But you were so unlucky to get seized upon, which is always the worst possible outcome. And then obviously the Mordathan came in and took the Warlord out. I mean, that was a phenomenal opening round of shooting from the Raven Guard, and then to have the Grave Wardens only lose 2, but then run off the back of the board. I mean, that was just like heartbreaking.
Yeah,
I don't know. It was really tricky. I think your deployment. Deployed behind that big building, I think it may have hemmed you in. You could have perhaps done with being in the open a little bit, I don't know. But it was an unreal game. We've had quite a few Raven Guard, Death Guard, and it's kind of swung either way. But that was a bit of a rough ride, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Mordathan.
They're one of the most fluffy of the Raven Guard units. They're just underpowered, really. If you give them sniper rifles, they're once per game you get the fatal strike, and this time it played off for me. Turn 1 Warlord kill. How often does that happen? I was very, very fortunate first with the Seas, and then turn 1 just mincing through the heavy weapons support squads. I think realistically it was a big push to get back from that. One of my favourite units, but they always do abysmal. Just today they picked up. So
they did all right, didn't they?
They did all right.
I think it was that initial, like you said, it was the Seeds, but it was getting into position so they could fire those sniper rifles, bang on the Warlord. And it was such a shame because he was such a great buffer for your army, wasn't he? But also, I think as well, the orbital bombardment you had, the strike from the Damocles Command Rhino, that really helped clear out those heavy weapon squad, which was a real shame because you could have done with them just firing at
more missiles.
I think it was hard as well because the Arcus struggled for line of sight. You didn't get those 8 shots. But we've seen on the channel all the time, Fire Raptors are such a tough prospect, and 3 was pretty cool, but you had a lot of firepower, so it kind of worked out. It just didn't quite work out in the end, but it was quite an exciting game.
Yeah, I mean, we did forget the Seekers as well, so that's another 2 victory points.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Minor victories.
Minor victories.
Just creeped them up.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was really good.
I had a good time. I have to admit, when I first saw Matt's list, I was a little bit dubious about how well the Raven Guard were going to do. A lot of armour. This list can't deal with armour. So you've got 3 combi melters, some melter bombs, and some Hellstrike missiles, but against armour 13, 14, real struggle.
Yeah.
But luck of the dice, I just pulled it out of the bag today. So, pleased.
It bears mentioning, though, talking about dice, your model here, the amount of saves that he made was unreal.
Yeah, the Armistice.
That's it.
After the Fire Raptors turned up, they started gunning through the Volkite Culverins, and standing at the front in Artificer Army, managed to tank 3 or 4 rounds of shooting from all 3 Fire Raptors. So certainly worth his points in just being a lead shield.
And his rules were great by giving the twin links.
It's mastercrafted.
Mastercrafted to all the Volkites in the squad as well. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Then he comes stock with an augury scanner to stop some infiltrators getting too close.
Yeah.
And then allows the Volkites to open up on Interceptor if anyone lands too close to them.
And those rules for augury scanner have changed. They're kind of where they are now, but they were really good. Well, they were probably too good, weren't they? Yeah. Conferring the unlimited range, well, not unlimited range, but the range of the weapon, and then went back to 18 inches. I'm kind of a bit mixed about it. I don't know. It's good and it's bad. I'm not sure.
For me, it's fantastic. Raven Guard infiltrating, deep striking, reserves. 18 inches is a big boon for Raven Guard. I personally don't use them just because everything comes in later anyway. So it's a bit of a downfall on this occasion, that's for sure.
Yeah, all good. All right, well, I've taken tons of photos of this game, so if you want to see these really 2 fantastic armies, please go to the Facebook page when the game is released. There'll be a ton of photos on there for you to enjoy. Now, I know, Paul, you're not on Instagram, which is absolutely fine. Sorry, but you are, aren't you, Matthew?
Yes.
Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram, Vengard5. I've got a lot of my Death Guard stuff on there, some of the commissioned work I do as well.
Fantastic, good stuff. So if you want to have a look at that, or if you've got any direct questions for Matthew, please go and ask him via his Instagram page. It's a lot easier to ask you directly than it is me. I've got a lot on my plate at the moment. Other than that, we need to talk about Surrey Spartans.
Yeah, both Matthew and I are part of the Surrey Spartans, a gaming group based in Coulsdon. We have a wide variety of games, mostly 30-40k, but we do D&D, Guild Ball, and other similar sort of games if you're interested. And down that way, then come by. We're glad to have extra people.
Is there a Facebook page people can go to? Or?
There is a Facebook page, Surrey Spartans. Just type it into Facebook, it should pop up.
Great stuff. All right, well, gents, I've really enjoyed today's game. It was really exciting. That 3 Fire Raptor list was fantastic, and that armoured column of Death Guard was equally impressive. So really, really great game. I think that concludes our Raven Guard special. We've had so many Raven Guard games in the last 2-3 months. It's been really nice, but the Raven Guard players are really hard to find. So
we're like buses, apparently.
apparently. So it's really good to have Raven Guard on again. We might not see them for a little while now, but I'm sure Paul would be keen for coming back.
Yeah, I've got some additional units in the process of being built and made and painted. So next time it probably won't be 3 Fire Raptors.
Good. What's next on the painting table for you?
I've got a couple of Medusas, and then once they're done, a Fellblade.
Oof, lovely. Be good to see a Fellblade in your colours. You've got really distinct green on them as well. It's quite bright. I love it.
Yeah.
And the dirty armour of the Death Guard. So great game. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one. Hi guys, here's the board build video for the Raven Guard and Death Guard game you've just watched between Paul and Matthew. I obviously film these board build videos prior to the game. Paul and Matthew have just texted me to say that they've got in the car together and they're on the way up. So they're leaving from London this morning. So they probably won't be here for another couple of 2 or 3 hours maybe. So that gives me plenty of time in the morning to build the board and get that sorted. As you will have seen from the video, I've gone for quite a straightforward board. Going to have a large hill here with a landing pad, and then down in the lowlands, I guess we've got sort of an abandoned area using the Games Workshop riser pattern buildings, Mars buildings, I think they're called. I really like these buildings. They've got a real great thickness and chunkiness to them. They're quite characterful. And we're going to use a Realm of Battle board, which I haven't used for quite a long time. I generally just use sand or slate or aquarium stuff. So we're going to use predominantly Games Workshop products today to build this board. So I haven't built a board like this before for a while, so that's quite cool. So in my mind, I kind of, as I mentioned, kind of like a hill here, and then like a lower valley sort of thing. The list that both the blokes brought, which I read prior to them arriving, they're quite tough lists. You know, Paul's got 3 Fire Raptors, some Dark Furies, and a load of TAC Marines and Vets, I think. And then Matthew's brought, 3 Vindicators and 2 heavy weapons squads, and there's a lot of firepower in there. So, I don't know how the game has gone. So who knows? So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and put as much terrain as possible without making it too crowded. We've got to bear in mind we've got all those models to fit on the board as well. But it'll be interesting, and I'm going to I kind of envisage this to be like an abandoned outpost. We've been doing this quite a bit recently on the channel, and I quite like the idea of it. So we've got like this landing pad where all the munitions or all the equipment and stuff comes in. And we just imagine like a bulk lifter or lander kind of comes in, or an Arvis lighter, and just drops stuff off, and it gets ferried down the hill and distributed into the little town here. I'm going to have quite a few Promethean pipelines, maybe some rocks, I'm not quite sure yet. But a couple of the abandoned buildings, we have them bombed out, some craters, and a little bit of rock and a little bit of aggregate, not too much, just a little, just to give it a little bit of flavour. So that's my plan. I have no doubt I will fiddle with it for quite a while, so bear with me. But other than that, I'm going to get on with it. Alright, got the basics down, I think. I'm kind of toying with the idea whether to put the landing pad in the corner and then have like a largish grey building, almost like where the overlord or the governor or the planetary, the person in charge essentially is here. I might put a bunker line all the way around this. And then have a grey building here, and then have like that there, and that would almost serve as like his private, I don't know, getaway landing pad. So if everything went wrong, he would go out the back door, down the hill, and get in his little Arbus lighter and then fly off if anything went wrong. Kind of like that idea rather than having the landing pad on top. So I'm going to play around with a few things and see what I can come up with really, but quite like that idea. Yeah, I'm not quite sure yet, so I'm just going to have a fiddle and see what I think. I'm going to start introducing some of the Promethean stuff just to get a bit more colour in it, and then I'm going to try several building designs to see what fits, and also some bunkers. The problem I've got here is because I've glued some of this rock and stuff to it, the textures, it's a little bit difficult to get a path all the way around. So I'm going to give that a try. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll work something out. I've had a quick look, and the building that I want to go in there doesn't quite fit the story. I ideally wanted it to be completely intact rather than sort of bombed out, which is kind of really only what I've got. So I'm going to abandon that idea and push on with the landing pad theme. I'm going to probably use some Promethean silos over there, put the landing pad back in the middle. The only thing I'm not super happy about these ruins is I would really have loved them to come with floors, and would just help tie them into the whole thing a little bit better. I'm going to look at doing some floors very soon. I've got a machine which allows me to, it's a vinyl cutter essentially, that allows me to cut an outline out of plasticard or cardboard or card or whatever. So you draw a shape in a computer and it just cuts it out. How I built the Zone Mortalis bases for the Iron Hands Immortals for the Challenge channel, which hopefully I'll do a few more bases for. I've got a couple of ideas for Zone Mortalis to come later on this year, and I really need that machine up and running. There was a problem with the program, so that's the reason why I haven't done much with it, but I think I've resolved the issue. But anyway, that's another story. I quite like what I've got at the moment. I think I really like these craters, but I don't think they quite work on the board, so I'm going to remove all the craters. I don't quite like them on this. I love the little generator station storage thing over there. It does need more terrain. You know, you've got 3 Vindicators and some Fire Raptors, so I need to kind of do something about that. I'm going to build up like a container, like a big container wall here. Maybe put a crane in somewhere, not sure yet. And a few other little bits. The board just needs a bit of height. It's quite low, and that's why I kind of wanted that large building on here. I still might explore that option. I'll just have to go with a bombed out building. I really wanted a complete one, but I'm going to go fetch it and have a look. So I'm just going to try it out. I'm not 100% convinced because I like the story of the landing pad, but then I also kind of like this story here, but I'm just concerned that the buildings, I don't know. I mean, it does kind of work. Maybe if we orientate it that way, because you've got the steps coming down here with the doors, which I quite like. I like the fact that it's not completely square as well. That's kind of cool. I think it kind of works. Can still keep the emplacements in place. I'm not going, because of the size of the building on this hill, I'm not going to be able to get the emplacements all the way around. So I can still keep the bunkers. That kind of still reinforces the fact that it's quite an important building and quite heavily fortified. Where are we? Here. So that still works. Does add a bit of height, and it'll allow the 2 armies to kind of manoeuvre around, which I kind of really like. Does it look better straight on? I don't know. I do like the fact that it was at an angle, and it does match up with the stair, with the kind of the walkway here. Maybe it does need to be square. Can't make up my mind. No, I think it's a bit boring. So we're gonna pop it there. Again, really need a floor for this building. It does have a floor when it's in the city board, you know, and it's a real simple task. You need to put it down on a sheet of plasticard or foam core or something, and just draw around it, set it in. It won't take too long. It's just finding the time to do these little extra touches. You know, you probably only use it 2 or 3 times, but it will be better for it. Yeah, I kind of like that. I like the angle. I'm just thinking whether I should orientate the rest of the buildings in the foreground at the same angle. I think that would help tie it together. I think it tie it together quite nicely. Yeah, I think it's much better. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use these barrels to connect the sections up here, just to sort of tell the story of the fact that they were reinforced. You know, an effort was made to reinforce the city or this outpost at some point. And we'll try and echo the barrels and things with single barrels around the rest of the board, just to show that, you know, there was an excess, and it was the only thing that was readily available to the occupants. It's just to further tell that story a little bit. So we've got loads of single barrels somewhere. I'm not quite sure where they are at the moment, but I'll find them. But oh, here they are. Loads here. So yeah, we'll dot these around just to show kind of the story that we're trying to tell here, and I can plug up some of these gaps with different coloured barrels as well. Just quite haphazard, and yeah, it does work quite well. What I might do is I might fill the centres with some rubble and maybe some black aggregate to begin with, just in the confines, just to show that there was a floor there at some point, and then maybe put some rubble and bury some crates and bits and bobs in there just to disguise the floor a little bit, just to add a bit of a colour contrast. Because here, this section here is quite large and it's quite open, and it just looks pretty terrible, to be honest. So we're going to do that as well. So there's still quite a lot to do. I know maybe perhaps it doesn't need it, but when the camera comes in, you've got units moving through, it will make a massive difference. If you're just playing a game at home, it doesn't really matter. You know, you just kind of need the rough outline and the physical line of sight. But for a game on the channel, we just need to make sure everything kind of fits seamlessly together rather. So that's what I'm going to do now. It's probably going to take me half hour, 40 minutes, but I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch me laboriously put out crates and bits and bobs. Right, all I want to do now is I just want to try and make this landing pad a little bit more interesting. And there's a little building at the back here which I just want to do a little bit too, so I'm just going to reinforce that again with the crates and the barrels and things. I have got at home a couple of sets of the, I don't know what it is, it's one of the boxed games. I think it was a Necromunda boxed game where you got a load of doors and like reinforced barricades and things. I really like that. Really like that bit of terrain. So I am in the process of painting all that up at the moment. So hopefully it'll be done, and we can further use bits like that to tell the story of each game. You know, I know it doesn't make a massive impact like a large piece of line of sight blocking terrain, but all these little extra touches kind of just add to the feeling of the game a little bit. So I'm just going to do something here with the landing pad. I'm obviously going to put my little friend somewhere. I don't quite know where. Maybe here. I don't know just yet, but I'm going to definitely put my friend somewhere. I love this little guy. Might put him on the little Prometheum line here coming out of the building, just trying to re-weld that back up. I'm not sure. Might put some smoke there just to show that perhaps the pipe's leaking. Got some smoke here somewhere. So yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Just to tell a bit of a mini story there, I guess. I'm really happy with the boards coming together. I'm going to fill the floors in, like I said. I'll do that in a bit. Loads of line of sight. You know, those Vindicators have got to work hard. Those Fire Raptors have got to work hard when they come in. I know there's perhaps not much hiding from a Fire Raptor, but you know, we've got to make Paul think about what he's doing. So I'll get on with the landing pad. Right, as you saw, I just filled the inner parts of the building. It does make a difference. It clearly defines the insides of the building. I mean, it's not ideal because ultimately they had probably checker plate flooring, wouldn't they? You know, my plan is to is to have bases for these and put like a perimeter around the inside and then a checker plate in the middle, or use the Zone Mortalis tiles that I've got just to cut some tiled floors for them, which will look a lot better, I can promise you. They'll look like the top of this building, similar. But what I am going to do is I'm going to have a very gentle scattering of this stuff. Just going to use a sieve. I want it in a very, I just want it in a very general kind of just smattering over the board, just to help. It won't make a massive difference, but what it will do is it will help to reinforce the darker line of the hill a little bit, and it will help just overlap some of these defences a little bit. I know it's kind of counter to what I said about making a floor, but it just helps blend it in a tiny bit more. Not going to do too much, and then I'll just blow it after, just give it a little, just move all the particles around a little bit, just around the base of this hill. Let's darken it up a little bit in here. Don't want to go too crazy, but it does make it, it just adds a tiny bit of definition. I'm quite happy with it. It's quite busy, but that's okay, because there needs to be a lot of line of sight blockers in this game. But when you get down, you know, there's not one point on the board where I can see right through to the line. So deployment is going to be absolutely key. And I think what will happen is Paul, who I think is perhaps maybe not the weaker force, but certainly in the first couple of turns before those reserves arrive with the Fire Raptors, he's going to need cover. So he might, you know, Matthew might decide to deploy one side, and if I face a big armoured force, I tend to deploy in the opposite corner to give me a bit of breathing space, and Paul might do that as well, I don't know. But I quite like it. I love this. This just introduces that little bit of height into the board. I think that's it. Might have a little bit of a fiddle before the guys arrive, but other than that, I'm really pleased with it. I really hope you've enjoyed this board build video. I tried to do as many of these as I can, just to show you the time and effort that goes into building the board, so I don't just come in and slap terrain pieces down on the table and hope for the best. There is a thinking behind it. It's the first time I've used a Realm of Battle board for quite a while, probably. Well, of the Adeptus Titanicus game that we did, the snowboard, I used a Games Workshop Realm Battle board for that. But prior to that, all the 30k boards are all in tiles or, you know, all this aggregate. So really nice to have this back in. I think to make the boards better in the future, there needs to be floors, like I mentioned. I'll get on those. That'll be quite cool. My machine is up and running, hopefully by the end of the weekend. The final thing I've added to the board is these very small pieces of slate, which I just smashed up with a hammer from the slate I've already got. They just add a little bit of contrast into the board, which I quite like. It's a little bit pocketed. I perhaps would have liked it a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more strung out, I guess. I don't know what the word is really, but rather than sort of in little clumps, so like it kind of blend into a little bit more. But other than that, I'm quite happy. I put a little bit more of the grey stuff in here, because obviously this building's made of grey slate or grey stone or whatever you want to call it. So I think it just adds a little bit extra. What I might do is I just might go back over it with some of the little black aquarium stuff, just to help blend those in so they're not so harsh, because they're quite a stark contrast between the brown and the grey, so I just want to blend them in a little bit more.
Yep, done. Way better.